Hey guys, it's Thomas here with Technovision, and welcome to the next episode of our Spigot plugin tutorial series. Now in this episode we're going to be creating custom items and having them do some special effects, but before we get started I just wanted to mention that I am going to be changing the series a little bit. I've decided that each episode we should start over fresh with a new plugin without any of the old code or methods from the old episode, because it is going to start to get really cramped with unnecessary methods from old videos. So I will be starting over each video just so it's a lot cleaner, and also you will notice later today that the GitHub will now be organized by episode in folders so you can follow along better. Alright, so when it comes to custom items in Spigot, there are a lot of different ways to go about this, but the way I'm going to show you, in my opinion, is the most efficient when it comes to saving CPU resources on your server, because we don't want to create the same item over and over again when we're going to be using it multiple times. So we should just create the item once and then assign it to a variable and then be able to access that whenever we want. So to do that, let's go over to our package explorer, and in your main package here, you want to right click, new, and we're just going to create a package called items, just so we can store our items in there. And in this package I want to right click, new, Java class, and I'm going to name this class item manager. You are free to name it whatever you'd like. Alright, so add this to the repository, and first thing we should do is just declare a public static item stack and then the name of your item. In my case, I'm going to make a little wand that you can use to create explosions, so I'm going to name this wand. And make sure, just a singular wand, and make sure you import item stack. So this item stack is going to be the actual item itself, but we need to actually add some things to this item before it's ready. So I'm going to make a public static void method that our main class here can call to create all of our items. This will make a little bit more sense once you see it in a second, but you want to make a public static void method named init. And inside of here, we're going to house a bunch of different methods over time that will create our items and assign them to these. Alright, so first item I want to make, like I said, is this wand. So we're going to create a private static void because we don't want anyone else to access this method. And we're just going to call it create wand. And inside of this method here, first we need to do is create an actual item. So to create an item in Spigot, you just want to type item stack. Let's name it item, and this is equal to a new item stack. Now there's a few things we need to pass into here. We need to pass in the material type and the amount. So first thing is the material. So if you type material dot, you'll notice there's a bunch of different material types. This is pretty much every single block in the game. If you are using Spigot for 1.12 or below, you will notice that things are a little bit different. That's because it actually uses a different material system. So this is only for 1.13 plus, but you can choose whatever material you want. So I'm going to choose stick. Dot stick. There we go. So, and make sure you import material if you haven't already, but this is going to make sure that your item is actually a stick in Minecraft. So add a comma, and next is the amount, and this is how many you get from this item stack. So in my case, I just want one because it is one stick. Add a semicolon, and this is pretty much your item done, but we want to customize it a little bit more than this. Of course, we don't just want a stick, but this will give you a vanilla stick if that's what you're looking for. So next we can actually set some properties by doing item meta. Let's name it meta, and we want to set this equal to our new item that we just made, dot get item meta. Import item meta. Now that we have the meta for this item, we can change some things in it. So if you type meta dot, you'll notice there's a bunch of different stuff you can choose from. You're free to mess around with any of these you want, really. There's a ton. First thing you should do though is set display name. And this will allow you to set a name for your item, a custom name. And this just takes in a string. And what I want to do is use our color code here so we can color it. And I want this to be color code 6, so it's orange or gold colored. And we're just going to call this the stick of truth. So now this stick item that we made is going to have a custom name called that says stick of truth, and it will be orange or gold colored because of this color code. So that is good. Next we can create our lore. So you can actually set the lore by doing meta.setLore, but you can see here that it does take in a string list rather. So we need to make that first. So let's make a list of strings, name it lore, and this should be equal to a new array list as you would expect in Java. And make sure you import list. Now you want to think of lore on items, and again, lore is that text that appears below the name of the item. You want to think of lore as essentially a list of lines, and each line in the list that you add is going to be a new line in the lore. So the first line we can add to the lore, we can do by doing lore.add, and this will add a new line, and we can just type whatever we'd like. So I'm going to add this color code here actually, and add 7, so it's gray for the lore. And I want it to say, what's interesting? Let's say something like stupid, like this powerful artifact is a relic of, and then this is starting to get a bit long, so I'm gonna actually add a second line below it, lore.add, and then continue from there. So this powerful artifact is a relic of Minecraft's ancient history. All right, and a semicolon at the end. So what this is gonna do is have this be the name, and then below it, there will be 2 lines of lore. The first one will be this line right here, and the second one will be this line. And you can add as many lines of lore as the game will allow by just doing lore.add and continually adding. But now to set this lore, we do need to do meta.setLore, and then pass in this list we just made called lore. So pretty simple, exactly what you'd expect really. Next, we can add some more interesting stuff like meta.add enchant. So this will allow you to add a vanilla enchant to your item, and we can get whatever enchant we want by doing enchantment dot, and you'll notice there's a ton of enchantments here that you can choose from. If you want your item to just have like that shiny glowing effect on it, kind of like a golden apple, what you can do is just set the enchantment to luck, and then it'll just be shiny and not really have any effect on the item when you use it. So we also need to set the level. So this next argument here is a number or an integer, and it should affect essentially the level of this enchantment. So if you had this set to 3, for example, you would get luck 3 on your item. So just like, you know, regular vanilla enchants. I'm gonna set this to 1 because I'm just trying to get the glow shiny effect, so I don't really care about the level. And then the last thing we need to pass in is a true or false value. So it can either be true or false of whether or not you want to respect the vanilla Minecraft limits on item level. So for example, I believe like if you were to put sharpness like 7, for example, on your custom item, that would not work with the vanilla Minecraft enchants. So you would have to type false if you wanted to ignore the vanilla lock on level restrictions. I would just leave this false regardless of what you do, because there really, in my opinion, doesn't seem to be a reason to set this to true unless you're doing something very specific. All right, and then so now we have our enchantment added on there, but when you see the item in game, you'll notice that it does say enchantment luck on it. So what we want to do is remove the text that says enchantment, but keep the effect. Now we can do that by setting a item flag. So to do that, you want to get your meta again and do .set item flag, or I guess it would be add item flag because you're adding one, not setting one. And we can really get any item flag we want by just typing item flag dot, and you can see that there's a couple here. If you want to hide your enchants like I'm about to do, then you can do .hide enchants, and that will make it so that they don't show up in the item lore, but it will still have the enchant, of course, and the glowing effect. You could do hide attributes, which would get rid of those attributes that you see on like a sword or any sort of tool or armor. You could hide those attributes with this one. There's a few others here like hiding potion effects and some other things, but I'm just going to worry about hide enchants because we do not want to see this luck thing. We just want it to glow. All right, and we're done with setting the meta. Now we actually just need to attach the meta to our item, and we can do that by doing item.setItemMeta, and then just attaching our meta object that we just made. All right, so this object is completely done now. It is the exact thing that we wanted, our wand, but we do need to set it equal, or we need to assign it to this variable. So we can do that with wand is equal to item. And now, whenever we want to access our item, our wand item, we can just access this public static item stack variable here. Now to make sure that this item gets loaded at server start, we want to get this method here, create wand, just copy it, and you want to add a semicolon, of course, in your init method. Now, the reason we're doing this is so that over time, as you make more items, you can create new methods like this, like create wand, except for something else. I'll just show you, for example. you create a new method called like, oh, let's say you're making a new item called creates flame powder. And then once you're done making your item and assigning the variable, you can just add this method down below, and it'll initialize this item. And then when you call this method in your main class, all of these items will be loaded basically. So it's a lot easier to sort of grasp your head around. All right, so now that we have our stuff set up in item manager, we actually want to make sure we run this command or this method. So go to your main class, and on your onEnable method, we want to make sure we do item manager dots init. And again, this is going to make sure that all of this code gets run and that we set this wand item to our custom item. So now our item is in the game, but we don't actually have a way to get it yet. So what we need to do is create some way for players to access this item. And there's a lot of different ways you can do this. You could create a custom block drop or a custom mob drop, which I will be talking about actually in the next episode. But in this episode, we're just going to be doing a command that you can run to get the item. And then we'll be adding some effects in a little bit. So to do that, just like in the last episode, we want to go up to our main class here, just create a new package called commands. And inside of here, we can create a new class called, really whatever you want, but I'm just going to call it tutorial commands. And add to repository. And we've been through this before. You want to make sure that this implements command executor. Make sure it implements methods, of course. And I'm going to change a few of these just so they're less confusing. Make sure this is sender command. We want this to be label. And of course our args, can't forget those. All right, make sure this returns true. And just like last time, we want to make sure that only players run this command. So we want to do if sender is an instance of player, except we want to check if it's not an instance of player, and make sure we import player. So if the person who runs this command is not a player, so they're a console, we want to return true, which ends this command essentially. And we want to player.send a message. Oh, well, sorry, sender.send a message because it's not a player. And we want to send them only players can use that command. All right, so now that we know that the player is actually a real player, we want to create a variable called player and cast our sender into a player. Sender, there we go. Now that we have our player, we want to just create our command. So if command.getName.equals case, and I'm going to name this command give wand, just so it's super simple, just so you get the wand like that. And if the command name is give wand, then the way we actually give our player here our custom item is we want to do player.getInventory.addItem. And you can add an item stack into here. Now, like I said, you could just create your item that we created here. You could just create it right here every time the player runs a command. But in my opinion, that's just wasting processing power because there's really no reason to create the same item over and over again, especially when it's going to remain exactly the same. So that's why we made this class here essentially. So we can just do for add item, we can pass in item manager dot, and then we can see our item right there. So dot wand. And that is it, I believe, and a semicolon. All right, so this is all done. So now when the player runs /give_wand, it is going to give them our custom item. And we need to make sure that this command executor is actually running. So go over to your main class, and right below item manager.init, we want to do what we did last time. So get command, set our command name, which will be give wand. And of course, we need to set, oh, it's not cooperating. We need to set the executor. And this executor will be, again, this class that we made right here with our commands in it. So you'll just create a new instance of that class. So new tutorial commands. And great, so we now have our what's it called? Our command here. Now we need to go to our plugin.yml. And I've already set it up here when I was testing it out, but you want to add your command here, give wand. You want to add a description, gives our custom item to the player, and then a usage, of course. So that's all you really need to do. Once that is in your plugin.yml, this little section right here, then you can get your item in the game. So let's first, before we do anything else, run the game real quick and make sure that our item is actually inside of the game. Okay, so we're inside of the game now, and we can come over here and type /give wand. And there we go, we got our custom item, and we can check it out real quick. It is called the Stick of Truth, and we have our lore there, all color-coded exactly how we wanted. So now we have our item, and you can also notice that it does have that glow effect, but it's not showing the enchantment. So pretty much exactly what we set, so it's working perfectly. But you'll notice that obviously this custom item doesn't do anything. It's just basically a stick and nothing else. So what we're gonna do now back in IntelliJ is add some custom effects or actions to these items. Okay, so to do this, we are gonna need an events class just like last time. So come up to your main package here, right click, new package. We're gonna name this events, and we can name this whatever we'd like, but I'm gonna name it tutorial events, a tutorial events class. And again, make sure this implements listener, and once that's implemented, we need to create a new event handler, @event handler, and we're gonna create a event essentially for our item. So anytime you want to add something special to your item, like it does a special effect or something interesting, it is going to be an event essentially. I don't really think there's any other way to add anything special to your item like that. So what I want to do for this Stick of Truth is I want to make it so that if you right click on a block, it'll explode like a giant explosion, and then it'll say like, oh, you unleashed the power of the stick, or something stupid like that. But that's what we're gonna do for this stick. So I'm gonna create a public static void, and I'm just gonna name this on right click, I think. And this is gonna be a player interact event. So the reason it's a player interact event is because this gets fired anytime the player like right clicks or left clicks using their hand or an item in their hand. So that's why we're using it. Just name this event. And inside of here, we want to first make sure that the player is right clicking. Otherwise we don't want to do anything, right? So we want to do if event dot get action. Oh, that is not the right one. Dot get action is equal to action dots. And we want to make sure that the player is right clicking on a block specifically. So if the action that the player did is right clicking on a block, then we want to make sure that that player actually has an item in their hand just to avoid any errors. So if event.getItem, and this is going to get the item that the player was holding when they right clicked, is not equal to null. And we're doing this check again just to make sure that the player isn't just holding nothing in their hand, because we will be accessing the item, and if there's nothing in their hand, then it is going to throw a null pointer exception, excuse me. So now that we know that the item actually exists, we can do if, looks like IntelliJ is really freezing on me right now. All right, if event dot get item. Now what we can do here is make sure that the item is actually our custom item, because the game is not going to know if they're holding a regular stick or like a custom item or anything at all. So to make sure that your player is holding your custom item, you want to compare whether or not the meta equals your custom item. So we can get the item that the player is holding, get its meta, get item meta, and we want to make sure it dot equals our custom item, and we can get that custom item by doing item manager just like last time, dot wand to get your item, and then dot get item meta. So again, what this is doing is just making sure that the item's meta that the player is holding in their hand is equal to exactly the custom item we set. If it's not, it's just going to skip not doing anything, but if it is, that does mean we're holding our custom item, and we can actually move forward with this event. So considering that this is equal to this item meta, then what we can do is get a player object by doing player is equal to event.getPlayer, just so it's easier for us to access our player. And what we want to do is, I guess, spawn an explosion. That's what we said, right? So to do that, we can do player.getWorld.create explosion, and we want to create an explosion right at the player. So player.getLocation for the location, and then the second value I think for create explosion is how powerful the explosion is. So let's just make it like 2.0f. That seems fine to me. And a semicolon. All right, so this is going to create a TNT explosion right on the player's location when they right click a block holding our custom item. And let's just player.sendMessage to, just for extra effect here. Where is our custom color code? There it is. Just want to copy it real quick. get your color code. I'm gonna put 6 here for gold colored, and I'm just gonna say like, you dare use the stick of truth, and just like sort of an ominous warning. And I think that is pretty much it. Now, just keep in mind that obviously you don't have to do exactly this with your item. There are so many things in Spigot that you can do. You could have your custom item. I mean, everything that you are going to do should be in here essentially. But what you could do is all sorts of stuff like you could do player.getWorld.spawn entity. You could spawn TNT, a falling block. You could spawn a particle. You could spawn all sorts of stuff, or you could send messages, collect data, anything you really want. I will be covering all these things a little bit more in depth later on, so don't worry if you don't really understand how to use any of these methods, but just know that there really are like limitless possibilities with these items and what you can do here. So now that this is done, we want to make sure we register our events class. So go over to your main class, and you want to, in the onEnable method here, do exactly what we did last time, which is get server get plugin manager dot register events, and it's going to be a new instance of our class that we made here, the tutorial events class. And of course we need to pass in our plugin, which is just this. All right, so I think this is done, so we can launch the game now. And again, the way you build your plugin here is go to build artifacts, build, and I will see you guys in the game so we can test it out. Alright, so we're back in the game, and we do have our stick of truth here, and you'll notice that if we right click just in the air, everything is fine, but if we right click on a block, there we go, we've got a huge explosion, and it says you dare use the stick of truth. And this should happen every single time we right click. You could really abuse this, I'm sure, on a server, but that is how you make a custom item with a unique effect that you set for yourself. Alright, so that's going to do it for this video. Thanks guys so much for watching. I hope you learned a lot, and check out the GitHub. It is new now, so it'll have a bunch of different folders for each episode so you can follow along more easily, and hopefully it's more clear. But thanks guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.